A minister one morning was giving a sermon making the point that without God we are unworthy, and he was in his element and just letting it rip. And he said, with arms extended and with this rapturous voice, he said, without you we are but dust. And he was going to continue, but a little 5-year-old girl turned to her mom, and in her 5-year-old shrill voice, "Mom, what's butt dust?" You know, many of us, we don't value ourselves enough. We think we're unworthy. We think we're not good enough. We're butt dust. But that's not a unity teaching. That's not a unity teaching. We are innately good. We are not born sinners, we're born blessed. We're innately good, and we have so much more power and ability than we ever give ourselves credit for. We're valuable beyond measure. We're worthy to live our dreams. We're worthy to live a good life. And we're also limited by our own belief systems. Believing is seeing. What we believe is how we're going to experience the world. We create our life experience by our belief systems, by our perceptions. And we constantly validate and look for those things that will make our beliefs true, whether they're true in fact and reality or not. Our belief system is our paradigm. It's our status quo. It's what we go to. And until we're able to expand that, we keep living out our belief systems. We keep living out our patterns over and over and over. And it's up to us to become aware of that and to expand it and to allow ourselves to live more fully, more joyfully, more peacefully, and not be stuck in those paradigms. Just so easy to do in our humanness. We can expand our beliefs. It is possible to expand our beliefs. We can release our own imprisoned splendor with faith, by believing that it's possible, by having faith that we can do it. The only locked doors are the doors that are inside our minds. Let's share the video.
You are about to hear a strange but true story. Legend has it, Harry Houdini, the master magician, once claimed that he could break out of any jail cell in the world. All he had to do was walk into that jail cell with his street clothes on. "I'll be out of there in 1 hour, no problem," he said. Well, a very old jail down south heard about Houdini's claims, and they accepted his challenge. On the day of the event, many people gathered outside. Very confidently, Houdini walked right into the jail and into the cell, and they shut the metal doors behind him. The first thing Houdini did was he took off his coat. Then, very strangely, he took off his belt. Secretly hidden in Houdini's belt was a 10-inch piece of steel, very tough and very flexible. And Houdini started working. In about 30 minutes, that confident expression Houdini had when he walked in disappeared. In 1 hour, he was bathed in sweat. And at the end of 2 hours, Houdini, in defeat, collapsed against the door, which then opened. It opened because, you see, that door had never been locked. But that's not entirely true, is it? That door was locked. It was firmly and thoroughly locked. In Houdini's mind, which meant it was locked as if the best locksmith in the world had put his lock on it. The mind is powerful. How many doors in your life do you think are locked but aren't? How many times have you been stuck in the mental prison of overthinking something that really had a simple solution? There is an ancient African proverb that says, when there is no enemy within, the enemy outside can do us no harm. Your mind is the most powerful force you will ever face. It will tell you lies. It will tell you you can't do that. You're not meant for that. You're not good enough for that. You can't go on anymore. You don't have the energy. You must thank it for its opinion and carry on. Because like Houdini showed us, the only locked doors that exist are in your own mind. The doors in reality are open. And all you have to do is walk through.
Yeah, it's a good one. I love when there is no enemy within, the enemy outside can do us no harm. It's all a matter of what we think and what we believe. And it takes faith. It takes faith to trust in life, to trust not in just our limited viewpoints. Part of living out loud, which is our theme this year, living out loud, living with purpose, with passion, with intention, is knowing that we have these abilities within us, that we have this power within us to create a life that we would love. And knowing these innate abilities are always available to us. There's a unity teaching that many of us who have taken unity classes just adore, and it's the 12 powers teachings. That we have these 12 powers. I remember when I first talked maybe, 8, 9, 10 years ago here and talked about the power of faith, and somebody came up to me like, we have powers? It was so cute, like, we have powers. We have powers within us. We have abilities within us that we are always using, whether aware of them or not. They're innate spiritual abilities, powers. And most people misunderstand the 12 powers, that they think that we can control things outside of us. But the 12 powers are about in our minds, in our consciousness, in changing our lives and the experience of our lives by changing our minds and developing these abilities that are within us. We use these all the time, whether we're aware of them or not. Sometimes we use them, a lot of times we use them unconsciously. We can also use them from a sense consciousness where we use them based on what we're seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, touching. We can use them from a personality sense based on our emotions and our beliefs. And then we can also use them intentionally from a Christ consciousness, grounding ourselves in truth, grounding in ourselves in what's real, truth principles, and using these abilities from a Christ consciousness, which is the best way to use these abilities. Now, we're always using them, but how are we using them? How are we using them? But they affect how we experience our lives. So it's important to know that we have this within us. And it's not easy. We're going to be doing this one Sunday a month through 2023. It's not easy to give a whole talk on a power. So you're going to get just little bits of each of the power. And today is the power of faith. The power of faith. Our ability to believe and perceive and intuit and trust. Now, there's nothing new about spiritual powers teachings. They've been around for a long, long time. But Charles Fillmore, co-founder of Unity, put them in terms of the apostles, that we have 12 spiritual abilities, and he assigned each one to one of the 12 apostles based on how Jesus called them. Jesus called Simon Peter first, and this is the power of faith. Now, Peter, if you know anything about the New Testament or the Christian scriptures, you know that Peter is the one that always wavered in his faith. He was the one that let me walk on water too, and then he started and then sank. He's the one that denied Jesus 3 times. He wavered in his faith, but he was developing his faith. And he was the one that Jesus said, "Upon you I will build my church." He represents this power of faith, this ability to believe. So many times people say, "Oh, maybe I've lost my faith," or "I don't have any faith," but we never lose our faith. It's just, where are we placing it? In what are you believing? Where is that faith? And it's to say I have a faith. Traditionally we would hear this in some traditional Christian church, that my faith means a God outside of me, and we're not saying that at all. We're saying that within us. It's within us. Now, also, Charles Fillmore assigned parts of the body to each of the 12 powers, and for faith, it's the pineal gland. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Somebody can yell out if I didn't get that right. And that gland is so important to our rhythms and our body and how we regulate things, just like faith is so important to how we experience our lives. What we believe is how we're going to see the world. It's vitally important. Winifred Wilkinson Hausman said this, she's a Unity minister: "Faith is that quality in us which enables us to look past appearances of lack, limitation, or difficulty, to take hold of the divine idea and believe in it even though we do not see any evidence of it except in our mind." That ability to develop. We can develop our faith. We can expand our faith. Paul Hasselbeck was one of my teachers, in one of the books that he uses there's lots of books on the 12 powers. His book on the 12 powers talks about underdeveloped and overdeveloped faith. Somebody with an underdeveloped faith would be somebody that can't believe anything, or mistrusts someone, or is very skeptical. Where an overdeveloped faith would be narrow-minded and only seeing things my way and not able to expand. Mostly, we use these powers unconsciously, especially faith. We don't even know where some of our triggers come from, but we know when we're triggered. We know when we overreact to something. We know when we overreact. It's a trigger. It's a good indication to look at what is coming out for you. What language are you using? What are you saying? Charles Fillmore said that the first step towards any spiritual path is honest self-observation. We have to observe. If you hear yourself saying, "Oh, the filthy rich," what's your belief about money? I've used this example in prosperity class. Used to go to Costco and I'd get the total and I would go, "Oh my God, how could it be that much?" Instead of, "Oh wow, that's all." How it changed. What you say can be an indication of where your belief is. One of the best books that I know of on the 12 powers is a more recent one by Linda Martella Whitsett. Unity minister, and her book is called Divine Audacity. We have copies in the bookstore, but she talks about it, how the power of faith creates our perceptions. What we believe creates our perceptions. It also allows us to stand in conviction with our beliefs and to expect our good. She says this: our perception is so critical to our experience of reality that it would be wise for us to question our perception and to seek the greatest truth we can fathom as the basis for our viewpoint. When we're experiencing something challenging, it's difficult to stay grounded in truth. Our humanness, we want to go all over the place. We want to react. It's so easy to do that. It's difficult to stay grounded in love, in fairness, in compassion. And the only way we can do that is if we practice this and develop that power of faith. We have to practice it. We have to practice expanding it. When we behave out of integrity and express from that knowing of Spirit's presence rather than Spirit's absence, life challenges don't destroy us. It's been a tough week. Probably one of the hardest weeks I've had in my life. Definitely the hardest week I've had since I've been in Unity leadership, about 10 years. Most of you are probably on our email list, and for those of you that aren't, I sent an email out Thursday announcing that our music director, Janice Kelly, had resigned. We send her off with love. We send her off with blessings and visioning for her next great adventure, whatever that is. Some of us are grieving. Me too. With all the human emotions that come with grieving. Shock, sadness, anger, they all come when we're grieving. But there's no enemy within. And so I don't hold anything against Janice. I send her with love. And I can do that because I have a strong belief in a strong faith in that things will unfold for their highest good. That this is not something that will destroy me. I believe in our community. I believe that we are here because we want to be here and we want to belong and we want to do the work to be our best selves. And I believe in what our founders started for us, that through all the challenges and all the changes and everything that happens in a spiritual community in almost 30 years, we're still here because of the faith, because of the vision, that this is a place worth holding on to, that conviction. That there is no enemy. We're just here to love. We're just here to belong, to share. Eric Butterworth says this so well about God is at the center of us. But are we at the center of God? God, spirit, life, whatever you want to call it, is at the center of us, of each one of us. No more one of us than the other. No more in Jesus than in us. That Spirit is at the center of who we are. Who we are. But are we centered in that? Are we centered in a place of love? Unity's first principle is there is one power, one presence, God the good. There's no room for divide, taking sides. It's all about unity and oneness and goodness. In spite of our humanness that is angry or sad or denying or whatever, it's really hard to hold them both. But that's the mystery of life. It's not an either or, it's a both and. Both and. And sometimes, some of you who have gone through a divorce, the best thing to do is to separate. No blame, no shame. It's no longer a fit. And we need to move on and still hold that soul with love. Still hold hope for that soul and ourselves for the highest and the best lessons and the best blessings that we can allow ourselves to receive. It requires faith. It requires faith to know that it's possible. Release your imprisoned splendor to be all you came here to be, to have faith. The other night, I've mentioned before The Chosen, the show that Kevin and I are watching, and we just saw episode 5 on Thursday, which is about 2 stories of faith. One is a woman who's been hemorrhaging for 12 years. For 12 years. Now, 12 metaphysically, we like to look at numbers metaphysically, means spiritual fulfillment. But consider, or just imagine being an outcast for 12 years. Being isolated for 12 years, having your father disown you for 12 years, having people shun you because you're unclean for 12 years, and being all alone. And then becoming aware of something different. Spiritual fulfillment. I'm done with this. There's something else out here for me. And all she says she needs to do is touch the hem of Jesus' garment, and she will be healed. What is a hem but a fold over to prevent the fabric from unraveling? She just wants to touch that, so her life stops unraveling. And in the show, we see her, and he's surrounded by people, and she just somehow makes her way in and touches that hem, and she's healed. And he is like, who touched me? Who touched me? He could tell that something had come out of him. And he sees her on the ground, and it's just like, you just start bawling, because he's like, my daughter. This is a young woman whose father disowned her. My daughter, you are well. Your faith made you well. Our faith can make us well. And I don't mean it can necessarily cure some physical ailment we have, but it can make us well in mind. It can make us well in consciousness. It can give us peace. We have to believe it's possible, though, like the woman did. We have to believe it's possible. What's unraveling in your life, you need to fold it over, hem it up. Stop the raveling. The other story in this episode was Jairus, and he was a synagogue leader. And he had heard of Jesus but hadn't met him. and his daughter was dying. His 12-year-old daughter was dying. And he finds a way to get to Jesus, to ask Jesus to help. And they weave these two stories together, and Jesus is surrounded, and he can't get to the father's. He says, I'll go, but this woman stops him with the touching his hem. And he doesn't get there in time. He gets to the house, and there's wailers and mourners and rabbis there, and they're all saying, it's too late, you missed it, she's gone. And what does Jesus do but say to the mourners, get out. Get out. Metaphysically, get those thoughts out. What is alive here? They're holding her hostage. They're holding her, unalive, dead. We need to get rid of those thoughts and focus on life. Believe that we have life in us. We're breathing. We have life in us that wants to be lived. Each one of us does. Wake up to that. Believe it's possible. That something that maybe you felt has died out of fear. It doesn't have to be that way. Enliven what needs to be enlivened. Jesus said to the girl, she's just sleeping. To the mother, she's just sleeping. And she gets up and he says, feed her. She's hungry. She needs some food. It's, again, beautiful. It was so heart-wrenching to watch this episode. And this Jesus is really good. He winks and he's smiling. He's charismatic. And as any follower you would expect to be if people are going to follow him. It's a beautiful show. In both instances, Jesus says, your faith made you well. He says to the girl's father, your faith made her well. Your faith. I have never experienced faith like this, he says to the father, to Jairus. It just takes a little bit of faith to move mountains. And I don't mean physically moving mountains, but moving those challenges. Those obstacles that we see in our lives that are just blocking us and stopping us. With faith, all things are possible. With faith, if we believe, it's possible. Believe you can move through the challenge, and you will. Believe the mountains are too high to pass, and you'll stay stuck in whatever valley or lowland you find yourself in. The power of faith is powerful when we use it from a higher consciousness. Allow yourself to do that. You deserve that. You deserve to have that faith, that conviction, that expectancy for a good life. So where have you placed your faith? What do you believe in? Take some time this week and really examine that. Where are you placing your faith? You have faith. Where is it? I want to close with a prayer that Beth Overstreet wrote. Seems very appropriate for today. Divine love that flows through all. As much as I would want it otherwise, difficulties, obstacles, and setbacks occur. When an obstacle occurs, I often feel fear, anxiety, or overwhelmed. I pause, connect with spirit within, accessing faith and trust. I choose to release feelings of discouragement or resentment. I will not dwell on the past, but instead see the blessings in life right now in this moment. I refuse to let difficulties defeat me or define me. Assessing my connection to spirit, I am able to look forward with hope and compassion. This setback can become a comeback. Divine imagination is available to show me possibilities. Growing in wisdom, I build confidence. My strength is renewed. I move forward with love, light, and blessings. Amen. And all in. Namaste.